Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's discussion. We will be talking about player experience and what drives fun, what creates fun in video games, and how we can use the psychology behind creating fun to find effective use or effective implementations of fun in games. So first, we should just discuss and define what the player experience is. It's a emotional or cognitive response that players have when they are engaging with a game. It's whether or not they're enjoying what they're doing. And why is fun important? Well, fun keeps players engaged. It keeps people wanting to play the game, whether they finish it and they want to replay it, whether there's a continuous world for them to explore, like new content in live service games, whatever causes players to feel like they're having a good time will drive that player experience and will cause people to want to keep playing the game. If players are having fun, then the game is probably a good game. And I guess more cynically, it also drives your success in the video game industry. I forgot about that part. Um, the more people have fun playing your game, the more fun the game is, then the more likely they are to buy it, recommend it to friends, play it with friends, and drive those all important sales numbers. So that's a very important part. All right, let's get into a little bit of the theory behind fun. Um, these eight different categories are kind of how players interact or look to interact with games. Some combination of these things can create successful experiences and rewarding experiences for players. So let's go down the list real fast, and I'll break them down for you. So the first one is sensation, which is audiovisual. So graphics are cool. The art style is engaging. The soundtrack is good. The sound effects are good. That gives you a lot of positive audiovisual feedback. Players who like sensation in their games um, tend to gravitate to more bold art styles, bold color palettes, and engaging and interesting audio components. So the example here is Res. Res is a very I guess it's pretty old now. Jeez. Res, I got to start looking for more current games to discuss these things. Res is a very audiovisual experience. It's exactly what it is. It's flashy, it's bright, it's bold, and it's got an amazing soundtrack. Next up, we'll move on. Next up is, and I'm going to go down the list and not around that circle I made. Next one is submission. So that's relaxation. So people who like submission in games are people who just want to chill out and have a good time, whether it's something that's mentally stimulating through puzzles, or whether it's something that's just calming and um, disengaging from uh, their normal day to day, like something like Stardew Valley, which is the example that I give. Something that's just kind of calming and like I want to just be a farmer. That creates that relaxation, and um, the challenge isn't as important as um, feeling feeling good about doing what you're doing. Next up is expression. So that's creativity. That's building, customization. The big example is Minecraft. Games that you can do, yeah, you can build things, or you can customize your characters, or create, logos and audio tracks and things like that. That expression. A lot of players who look for expression in their games are the creative types that are um, looking for engaging outlets to do that, or are drawn to things that allow them to um, create outlets for their creativity. Next is discovery. This is leaning a bit back to the online test that I had everybody do in the beginning, first week or two of the class. Um, I'm an explorer in gaming, so I love to explore worlds, discover new things, find secrets, pick a direction, and go to that end of the map. Games like Breath of the Wild, open world games, Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, MMOs, things like that. Those are games that I really enjoy. Um, and so people who like discovery in their games are gravitate towards things that have large, expansive worlds, things to discover, secrets, um, small, you know, unbeaten paths, things that they can that they can discover for themselves. Gives them that sense of accomplishment. They feel fulfilled for having found a new thing. Next up is fantasy. Fantasy are people who are drawn to fantasy worlds are tend to be more um, tend to be looking for things that are impossible or things that are for lack of a better term fantastical uh, outside of the real world. So these are people who like to role playing games, draw a lot of the fantasy elements, or people who are interested in things like mythology or legends and things like that. Um, those are people who gravitate towards fantasy in their games. Narrative, so people who like storytelling. Compelling storytelling is a driving factor for a lot of people who want to experience games um, as they would a movie or a book. They care about the story, they care about the characters, they care about the world, and they want to learn more about it. Good examples of narrative games include The Last of Us. I'm sure I've mentioned this a million times in the class already. Mass Effect. The Sea of Stars is one that I really like. Games that the thing that they put forth before anything else is their story. That is the thing that they're trying to tell a story and give you gameplay components to enhance that story. Next up is challenge, and these are people who like difficulty in their games. People who like your Dark Souls players. People who like to figure out how to solve a problem, whether it's a hard piece of combat like in Dark Souls, or a very challenging puzzle, um, or a really complicated recipe and things like that. These challenges drive players and keep them engaged, and people who find fun in challenge will spend a lot of time attempting to master the thing um, that they're playing. And the last one is fellowship, which includes social interaction, things inside and outside of games. So if the game is something that players have to talk, have to interact with each other, it's a multiplayer game, or games that can create those social experiences like MMOs. Players who enjoy those things drive or seek out that fellowship in their games, mostly multiplayer games, and the communities around those games. Next up, we have some psychological theories that can be used to create fun, or can be a barometer for whether or not a game is successful at creating fun. These are things that we should be mindful of, and when we're analyzing kind of whether or not something is fun. which is a purely subjective point, whether or not the attempt is there to kind of hit on these couple of topics, because um, if a game is attempting to take advantage of these um, psychological theories and is unsuccessful at it, then that says more than just having a flat game idea or having a steep difficulty curve without actually having meaning behind it. The first one I'll talk about is flow theory. If you've taken the level design course, um, 142 in at Bristol, then you may have heard of flow. In my class this semester, I've talked about flow and flow theory. They're two different things. So level design flow is the concept of how a player moves from point A to point B in a level, whereas flow theory is a psychological idea of if you're able to balance your challenge, the challenges that players face, and the skill level that they have, and um, create kind of an equilibrium, create like an ideal level of challenge that will greatly drive engagement. So flow theory, kind of the idea of being in the flow, is when you are concentrated and fully immersed in the game that you're playing. So successful use of flow theory will create that flow state for players. So if you're playing a game and you find yourself really engaged in what you're doing, then the game is successfully creating flow. A good example of that is in Tetris, where players can play for hours and hours and hours on end, doing the same thing over and over and over again, but can hit that state and feel super engaged in what they're doing and not notice that they've been playing for as long as they have. Next up is this autonomy theory, a theory that you have freedom for what you're doing, a freedom to do what you want to do in a game. So games are designed with this in mind, whether it's something like The Sims, where you can have your characters do whatever you want them to do, and be whoever you want them to be. Or something like Elden Ring, where you have a lot of customization for your character, for your combat style, for your equipment, all of those things, the paths that you choose to go throughout the game. Giving players autonomy gives them their ability to make choices, and those choices can create engagement and draw people in, and ostensibly give them more fun. The final one is competence, which is a feeling of mastery, that some players feel more accomplished, as I said in the previous slide, when they are able to master a challenge, or when they are able to say that they have a high level of skill in something. So competence is giving the players the opportunity to do that. I use Sekiro as an example here, but you can also say this of pretty much any Souls-like or Soulsborne game, Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, all of it, that players who play these games and find fun in them tend to look to master a skill in playing the game. I want to also mention that while my recording cut off, would bring all of this kind of back to center what this is about. Um, Autonomy and competence are parts of self-determination theory, which is the idea that given a person having autonomy over their actions, the ability to master skills, and the ability to relate to um, the actions that they're taking, or the environment that they find themselves in, rather, they are able to self-actualize. So that's the overall theory on those. I should mention that. That's important. And next up, we'll talk some these core gameplay elements and how they create and reinforce fun. Um, and what you're going to be looking for in these. So, with your game mechanics, do do they have these things? They have meaningful interaction, meaningful rewards. Do they reinforce kind of um, the gameplay experience that they're trying to create? And when it's successful, you'll find yourself driven to um, interact more with the mechanics, work to get the rewards. But when it's unsuccessful, these mechanics tend to be ignored. Whether it's a system inside of a game that requires a lot of grinding to master, if it's a crafting system and the rewards for doing the crafting are not helpful for you in the game, then you'll probably ignore crafting. Um, if it's something that is meaningful, that if you're crafting the best weapon in the game, and that's something that is worthwhile at the end of the journey, then you'll interact with that crafting mechanic a lot more. Progression. Simply, your progression systems, unlocking things, your skill trees, your leveling, your experience points, the rewards during gameplay, whether it's something like a battle pass or um, a level unlock uh, tree, things like that um, focus players on completing challenges and things like that to unlock the next tier of reward. When progression is done successfully, then players will want to continue to create their ideal build of their character or unlock all of these different elements, get to the max level, continue finishing challenges until they get those achievements, things like that. And then freedom is freedom of choice, allowing players to create or impact their own experience by making choices throughout gameplay. And if freedom exists in a game, then these choices matter. And if the choices matter in ways that the players find meaning in, then it's successful and can be fun. If the players find their choices are more of an illusion, that if you choose to do one thing or another, but they end up having the same result, then choice won't matter as much and it won't feel as open as it could, and that could be something that detracts from player experience and causes players to avoid making those decisions. And the next thing we want to talk about is emotional impact. So, um, for a lot of players, as I've discussed in please hold here in the 8 types of fun, emotional impact plays a role in a lot of things. In submission and narrative and expression and discovery, you can um, develop different emotions for the players to experience by giving them these ways to interact with your game. Whether it's, and I'll go back to the correct slide now, whether it's excitement through the action that they're performing, or whether it's fear of whatever suspense is being created by the story, whether emotional storytelling has caused an emotional reaction in the player. All of these things can drive player experience, um, and the more emotional reaction a player has to the game that they're playing, the more connection that they'll have as to whether or not their player experience was a net positive, or whether it was not fun. I'm going to talk a little bit about multiplayer and social aspects of gameplay. So, obviously, when talking about those different types of fun, players who are looking for social interactions, whether it's something that they're looking for like-minded people on the game that they can talk about the gameplay with, whether it's they're looking for a group of players to play with, whether it's they're looking for people to play against. These things uh, generate their own kind of sub game inside of games that a lot of times can be considered what we call emergent gameplay, which is something that's not intended, but is a net positive effect of the game itself. So, um, players who drive or gravitate more towards cooperative games and online communities such as MMOs, where you can have guilds and um, raid parties and things to create this cooperative experience, looking for ways to work together to accomplish a task. That creates fellowship. I have a very personal connection to the idea when I played World of Warcraft in 2004. I played World of Warcraft from 2004 pretty much till 2010, nonstop with the same guild, and those players that I played with became real friends. And that, I think, is something that caused me to stay engaged with World of Warcraft for that 5-6 years that I played it, because that social engagement was real. It was a real connection that I had with these people that were also trying to accomplish similar goals as me in the game. On the other flip side of that, you have competitive gameplay. You have players who are looking to kind of lean back into that mastery idea of being better than other players and proving that they're better, playing against them, beating them. And sometimes those social aspects, or at least the competitive aspects, create social aspects where you have rivalries and uh, the creation of tension there with other players in games. Um, Players who are long time first person shooter players and things like that tend to uh, may I know I do. They have memories of specific players that they find or have played against or played with in a multiplayer lobby, and they remember them, and they may like them, may dislike them based on like, oh, this person's really good, and I idolize the idea that they're good, or I hate them because they constantly beat me, and I want to beat them. Like that um, tension can create kind of an emergent reaction to gameplay in a multiplayer setting. And I believe this one is our last slide. Yes, it is. Some of the common pitfalls that we want to kind of shy away from, and if you see these things in games that you're playing, in games that you're analyzing, you can point these out as things that need to be um, corrected or worked on, massaged into something that's more entertaining, and you can point out reasons why players might not find a game fun, which in turn can be used to avoid these pitfalls in your own game design. So balancing difficulty, I've talked about this ad nauseum. Want to make sure that your difficulty is intentional, and the curve is um, at equilibrium with the expected skill level of the player, so that they're having the correct amount of challenge when they're playing. Um, Poor game design, clunky mechanics, overly complex systems, and things like that can pull people out of games. Make them not want to interact with those systems. If those systems are required, can make them not want to play the game at all. And repetitiveness, grinding, too many fetch quests, doing the same action over and over and over again. This is, I think, might be one of the hottest takes that I have for gameplay or for video games, in at least among my friend group. I have said time and time again that I hate the first Assassin's Creed, because the first Assassin's Creed felt like I was doing the same 3 to 5 different things over and over and over again, and the repetitiveness pulled me out of it very quickly. And I mean, the first time I played the game, I was 17 years old, so it may not have had the most mature, attention span playing the game, but that repetitive use of tasks of the same things um, was something that pulled me away from the game. Now I know that Assassin's Creed, as a concept of the open world, open map, tons of collectibles and discovery points, has become kind of an industry standard for open world games. And a lot of that can be pointed back to the development of Assassin's Creed. I think that they didn't do a good job in the first time out, by not allowing enough of having enough variation of things for the player to do. So if you find yourself playing games where you're doing the same thing over and over again for very incremental reward, or incremental progression, or if you're feeling that the result is the same no matter what you're doing, that repetitive task can pull people out of games, make them not want to play that game. I never finished the first Assassin's Creed for that reason. Now, in subsequent ones, sure, it got better, right? Developers learn from your mistakes and implement and iterate upon those designs. That's the whole point of game design. So, something to keep in mind, especially when you're designing your own games, is that repetitiveness is a very easy slope to boredom. Yes. And that is it for the presentation for this week. I think that the only thing that I have on the schedule at our syllabus for this week is going to be we are not going to do a discussion for this week. I am going to remove that from the syllabus. I want everybody to concentrate on the project that is due at the end of the week. So don't forget that if you have any questions regarding that, if you want to meet with me and get some feedback on what you're working on, things like that, you can reach out to me through email. You can, I believe I made the announcement that includes my You Can Book Me link. If not, I will also attach it to. No, I did not. Okay. I will attach it to the discussion, or the post with this video. So check that out. If you want to have a one-on-one with me and you want to schedule it, you can do that there. Thanks, everybody. See you all next week.